everyone, welcome back. I'll be using a couple of lectures to touch upon certain important topics and concepts, knowledge of which is really essential for proper Six Sigma implementation. So let's begin with our lecture 4, which is Introduction to Dmacc Process Improvement Methodology. Define, measure, analyze, improve and control are the 5 major phases of process improvement, and each phase has its set of tools and deliverables. Now if you would ask me what is Dmacc, I would say that it is amalgamation of scientific methods and Pdca cycle. What are scientific methods? We have all been taught to use scientific methods in grade school, that how we can use scientific methods and reach to the conclusion of any given problem. So I'll just give you a brief recap. What are scientific methods? If we have some problem, how we can use these scientific methods to reach to the conclusion? So it's basically a 4-step method. The first step is observe. Here you observe the given problem and try to understand it. Then comes making an hypothesis. Now what is an hypothesis? I would say hypothesis is an educated guess or a proposed explanation on a very little evidence and a starting point for further investigation. And then comes data collection. Here we collect data to back our hypothesis, and then and we use our data and hypothesis to reach to the conclusion. Six Sigma is also like this, but it's a little complicated because it uses core statistics and it has really complicated tools and techniques. And then comes Pdca cycle. Now what is a Pdca cycle? Pdca cycle was developed by Walter A. Shewhart in 1920s. It is also known as Shewhart cycle. Now what is a Pdca cycle? Pdca is an iterative 4-step management method used in business for control and continuous improvement of processes and products. So what are these 4 stages? These are plan. Suppose this is our process. We have to improve this using Pdca cycle. How will we going about it? We will be planning first. Then comes do, which is implementation of the plan. Then comes check. Here we check if what we have planned or what we have implemented has worked or not. Then finally we act. This is here we see whether what we planned and what we have achieved is equal or not. If not, then we again just continue with this cycle. This cycle goes on and on and on. That's why it's called continuous quality improvement cycle, because it never stops. Now we know that Pdca cycle has 4 steps: plan, do, check and act. So let's study each step in further detail. So first let's take on the stage 1, which is plan. In this stage we establish clear objectives and processes which are necessary to deliver results in accordance to the expected outcome. What I mean to say is that you have initiated a Pdca cycle for your process. This means you are not satisfied with your current process and you want certain improvements in it. So what are the tasks which are accomplished in this plan phase? These are: you identify the problem, you determine the root causes, and you create an action plan. Now you know these are your tasks. So you might also need certain tools to accomplish this task. Yes, we have tools which are used in plan phase so that we can accomplish our given task for the plan phase. And these tools are process maps. Now what is a process map? Process map is basically a pictorial representation or a pictorial diagram with the help of which we can study a process or service very clearly. Then comes brainstorming. Brainstorming is basically an individual or group thinking with the help of which an effort is made to reach to the conclusion of any given problem. Then comes affinity diagrams. Now what is this? It is a tool which is used to organize data and ideas. Then we have Pareto charts. Pareto chart is a bar graph and it is very useful in clarifying which data, situation or process is significant to us, and with the help of this we can understand where we have to put our efforts or where we have to work on to improve our process. And then comes run charts. Now what is a run chart? Run chart is a graph using which observed data is depicted in time sequence, so that we can study the performance of a process and we can analyze it. So now let's take the second stage, do. In this stage, as the name suggests, we implement the plan, we execute the process. And in this stage, we also collect data for charting and analysis. So now what are the tasks which I have to accomplish in this stage 2? This is implement the action plan, that whatever we decided in stage 1, that is plan stage, we are going to implement these. So what are the tools which I can use in this stage? The tools are, number 1, it's control charts. These are also known as Schuhart charts. It's a statistical process control tool and I have taught you about SPC in lecture 1. If you have any doubt, you can just go back and check lecture 1. So basically control charts, with the help of these we can determine if the process is in a state of statistical control. Then comes run charts, we have already done this, and then comes histograms. These are very popular. It's a graphical representation of data distribution. Then we have Gantt charts. It is a kind of a bar chart which helps in illustrating the project schedule. And then we have flow charts and network diagrams. These are all the tools which we can use in the do stage, with the help of which we can execute and implement our plan. Now let's take the third stage, which is check. Here we study the results we collected in the second stage, that is do, and then compare them with the expected outcome, that is whether after implementation whether we have achieved those results which we planned in the phase 1. And now what we need to compare is deviation. Deviation in implementation, that is if we have implemented the plan properly, was the execution complete or not. And in this phase we should also study and convert the collected data into useful information so that we can use it in our fourth stage, that is act. Not only we should study and convert this data, we should also document it, because all the data collected in this Pdca cycle and other similar Pdca cycles can be very useful in improving other processes which are similar to this one. So now what are my tasks, or what is my task which I should accomplish in this phase? I should review and evaluate results of changes made. So now do I have any tools which I can use to accomplish this? Yes, we have flow charts, Pareto charts, control charts and run charts. We can use all this in this phase. Now let's come to the last stage, which is act. In this stage, corrective actions are suggested and implemented so that the difference between the actual and the planned results can be removed. Sometimes it does happen that after we implement the plan, we find that the results are not according to what we believe they would be. So this difference is analyzed to determine the root causes. What we have to do is that we have to determine that where we should make changes to induce maximum improvements in our products and processes. So what are my tasks of this phase? My tasks are to reflect on what has been learned, recommend changes, and finally I have to standardize successful changes. Now what are the tools which I can use? Tools which I can use in this phase are radar charts. With the help of radar charts, we can display multivariate data graphically. These are very useful to check the performance of an ongoing program. If I have to give you one very simple example of radar charts, then it's very commonly shown on the TV screens during cricket matches. They use radar charts to show the graph of a batsman, that where he has hit maximum shots or where the bowler is putting his maximum balls. So that is a radar chart. And then we have affinity diagrams, we have brainstorming. We can use all these tools in this phase. Then I also would like to suggest few other versions of PDCA which are very common. One of them is Pdca, but the fourth stage is not act, but it is adjust. This means that after going through the first three stages, we find that we don't need to implement anything new, but we have to adjust few of our processes to get the desired result or desired outcome. So this is the fourth stage, is adjust in this scenario. Then it is Pdca, where the third stage is not check but study. And finally it's Opdca, where we have one more stage, that is O, that stands for observation. Here we should observe our process first properly, and then we should decide whether we have to just go in for a PDCA or continuous quality improvement cycle or not. Now that you know what is a PDCA or a continuous quality improvement cycle is, I would like to give you an example. It's an example from the maintenance services. It's a very simple example of PDCA cycle. So if somebody from the maintenance services want to use this PDCA cycle to improve their services, how would they do that? Their first stage would be plan. So what they will plan is that they will draw a maintenance budget. They will document the maintenance work specifications, like what kind of services they intend to offer, and third, the legal considerations. So all this will come in the plan stage. Then they will move to their second step, which is do. Here they will implement whatever they have planned, that is, they will provide their maintenance services, such they can be daily inspections or periodic maintenance work, and this can include cleaning, checks, repairs, maintenance work, etc. and etc. And then they will have to come to the third stage, which is check. Now here they have to check the performance of their process, man hours spent, confirmation of inspections, and inspection results. After this stage, they will move to their fourth stage, which is act. In this stage, they will examine improvements, they will standardize successful improvements, and they will have to evaluate their plan. They will have to evaluate their plan if they were successful in implementing and bringing on the changes, and they were able to better their product or services or not, and if yes, then it's okay. Otherwise, again they will have to start with this plan phase. This is why it is called a continuous quality improvement cycle, because it never stops. But what has been seen is that with each passing cycle, there are a lot of improvements in the products and processes. Now, I will like to give you another example, which is of Pdca. It is a real example and it is from the medical field. Here the aim was to improve the care of the patients with cardiovascular disease by involving patients in their own care. So this study was conducted and 5 Pdca cycles were used, in Pdca cycles were used. I'll just give you a little brief of the study. So it was seen in the start of cycle 1, 0% patient had self-management goal. So in the cycle 1, the doctor himself tries self-management goal sheet with 3 patients. Now, what is this self-management goal sheet? It is a kind of a sheet. Here this is given to patients where they write their daily records, their daily activities, like what they eat, how they felt, and when they slept, and all this. This is a detailed sheet. And after cycle 1, in cycle 2, the doctor tried this goal sheet with all the patients, but for 1 week. And in each cycle the data was being collected. And in the third cycle, this registered nurse uses SMG goal sheet with patients and the MD followed up. In cycle 4, all the patients were working with registered nurse, and in cycle 5, all the staff was oriented towards using the self-management goal sheet. And the data was collected from all the 5 sheets, and what we saw was that in the beginning of cycle 1, 0% patient had self-improvement goals, but at the end of the 5th cycle, 10% patient had self-management goals. So this means it showed improved care. Now that we know what are the scientific methods, what is a PDCA cycle, let's get back to Dmaic. Dmaic is a process improvement cycle or a tool or a technique which focuses on using data to make decisions. Then those decisions are verified before committing business resources. If I have to give you one definition of Dmaic, then it would be Dmaic refers to a data-driven improvement cycle which is used for improving, optimizing and stabilizing business processes and designs. Dmaic is a core tool which is used to drive Six Sigma projects. Now let's investigate Dmaic further. Let's try to study Dmaic. Dmaic is a 5-phase technique, and the first phase is define. Here what we try to define are what would be our activities, what are our goals. So in this phase, project charter is created and team is assembled. If I have to tell you what we try to articulate in define phase, then we try to articulate the business problem, that where the problem is, why we want to initiate a Six Sigma project, and on what problem we have to work on. Then our goals, that is what we want to achieve. Once we have initiated the Six Sigma project, what would be our goals, what kind of improvements we want in our products or services. Then potential resources, this means what kind of resources we have which we can utilize in our endeavor and which we can utilize to drive our Six Sigma project. And finally, the scope of the project. If I have to give you basically an overview of the define phase, then I have written that on the board. What we try to define in this phase is the problem, as I already told you, that what is missing in our product or service, or what we want to just improve upon. Then comes the customer. Customer is very important because this is the person for whom we are developing our products, for whom we are giving our services. So what kind of products and services will make him happy? This is also defined in this phase. And what are critical process outputs, like what is critical to quality and what is voice of customer. It is also taken care in this phase. Then what are our target business processes, the scope of the project. So what here in this phase we try to do is that we try to create a project charter, team is assembled, and this project charter is approved upon. But before I move to my second stage, I would like to take upon two concepts, that is critical to quality and voice of customer, and I would like to discuss them in further detail. Let's start with voice of customer. Now what is voice of customer? Voice of customer is a market research technique with help of which you can get detailed set of customer wants and needs. Now in simple words, what is voice of customer? Voice of customer is a customer feedback about his expectations and experiences of your products and services. Now let's get into a little more details about voice of customer. In voice of customer, what we try to do is that we try to collect all the sets of customer needs and wants, and then these needs and wants are put in a hierarchical order. That is, which means by putting them in hierarchical order, we want to know which needs or wants are more important, where we should focus and where we should work on, which will give maximum satisfaction to the customer. And then voice of customer includes both qualitative and quantitative research. Usually it's conducted at the start of a new product or a process or a service design, so that before producing a product we should know what is our target customer and what are his expectations from our products and services. Then what kind of techniques we can use here? These techniques are very simple. These are surveys, interviews, contextual inquiries and focus groups. So basically the purpose is to collect all the information regarding what kind of products and services are required by the customer and what are his experiences and issues with the current products and services, because once we know that, we will develop a good product for them. Now who develops this voice of customer program? Voice of customer program is developed by the product development team. So now what is the job of product development team? This means what they should do. They should define the topic, like what is the topic, where the research should be conducted and what kind of questions should be asked. Then they should design a sample of the voice of customer program, that what kind of research the research team should go ahead with. Then they should inform the research team that what kind of customers should be involved in this research work. For example, if I am going to manufacture these pens, these are then mostly required by the people who use whiteboard. So my research team should interview those people. If they will interview any other person who doesn't know about the functioning of these pens, who doesn't know what quality is required, all the questions will ask and all the information is a waste, because it won't be helping me. Then their job is to generate questions, like what kind of questions should the research team ask when they just meet a person who will be using my product. So what kind of questions he should be asked. Then finally they should conduct interviews. They should analyze the data, that is whatever information has been collected by the research team should be analyzed by the product development team, and they should then come out with a clear statement and clear instructions to the employees so that they can develop products accordingly. Now the question is, why to conduct a voice of customer program? The answer to this is very simple. In such a competitive age, you cannot stay in business, leave alone earning profits, if you do not pay heed to what your customer needs from your products or services, because there are many options and they can easily move on if you are not able to deliver what they want. So what I mean to say is that customers' perceived quality is a leading driver of business success. So if you have a good voice of customer program, it will help you connect with customers at the key points, and you will be able to, number one, customize your products and services and add additional features and to meet your customer needs and demands. Number two, you will be able to prioritize wants, needs, issues and developments. And three, you can evaluate new concepts, solutions and ideas. And by doing this, what you can do is that you can multiply your profits. So now here I want to introduce you to one more term, which is VOB, or voice of business, and this we get from the process owner. The feature of VOB is that it's very specific. Like whatever wants are of the process owner, they are very specific and we do not need to do much to validate those. Like he can say the process owner wants the labor efficiency of 85%, or they want to reduce the cycle time by 2 hours. And same way, the voice of customer is obtained from a customer, which can be either the direct recipient of our services or an indirect recipient. For example, if I give you a person is an alloy wheel manufacturer, so his direct recipient would be an automobile manufacturer who might be using his wheels in his cars, and indirect recipient or an external customer is the person who is going to drive that car. So when we receive the feedback from voice of customer feedback from an internal customer, they are very specific. Like that person can say, I need the diameter of the wheel to be this much, the thickness should be this much, and the material used should be this one. So they are very specific. But again, we have to validate those needs from the external customers. But when we collect VOC from an external customer, they can be very vague. For example, he can say that I don't want my car's wheel to wear and tear off quickly, and it should stop quickly when I apply a brake. So these are all very vague needs. So what we should do is that we should translate these needs into something which is meaningful for the process developer, and this can be done by converting VOC into a CTQ statement, that is critical to quality statement. Now let's study critical to quality, that is CTQ. Now what is CTQ? The best way to understand CTQ is it is an attribute of a part, assembly, sub-assembly, process or product which has a direct impact on actual or perceived quality. It is a quality of a product or service that is derived from VOC. So a good CTQ statement is the one that is measurable, which includes definition of defect and it includes performance standard. So now that we know what is VOC, we also know that VOC is something vague. So to make it more measurable, we should convert it into a CTQ statement. And how we can do that? Okay, it can be done. The first step is this. We have our VOC or voice of business. Then from this we know what are the needs and wants. And then we should also know what kind of services or products are required. These are the drivers. These will help us to reach a CTQ statement, and then we can generate our CTQ statement, which is critical to quality. So now why we need to convert VOC into CTQ? We need to do that because if we cannot measure how we are doing, how our business processes are doing, how will we come to know that how happy is our customer with our products or services? Let me give you an example. For example, in VOC, we found out that customers want good service and it should be delivered on timely basis. Now this is a very vague thing. How can we know what quality is considered good by the customer and what time is considered best by them? For example, a VOC was held at a fast food joint and the customers told that they want to be served quickly. This means the driver of satisfaction is timeliness. This means they want to be served quickly. But again, this is very vague. How will the employees at fast food joint know that what time they should deliver? So a CTQ statement was generated and further research was conducted, and it was found out that people or the customers don't want to wait for more than 5 minutes in queue to order food, and they want the food after ordering within 10 minutes. So now this is a very measurable thing. This means they don't want to wait for more than 5 minutes and they want their food in 10 minutes. So now the employees know how to handle it. For example, if on rush days they can add 2 or 3 more billing counters so that people don't have to wait in queue, or what they can do is that if they think that they take more than 10 minutes to deliver the food, they should order more machines, or if their employees are less, they should add more number of employees. So this is something which is measurable, and in this way they can deliver to their customers what they want. So this is why we need a CTQ statement. I would want to elaborate this concept further by giving you few examples. So if you can look at the board, I have drawn few charts for you. So as you know that voice of customer is translated to CTQ, that is critical to quality. Same way voice of business is translated into a CTP, that is critical to process. Now, I would like to give you one example of VOC. For example, in a VOC, the need of the customer is that a factor expressed by the customer as being important to what he perceives as quality. Now, the driver is understanding what he means by good, and the CTQ statement should be a measurable form of this driver. Let me give you one example. Okay, the need of the voice of customer was, this was the need, that I want a good customer service. Now, the drivers for this need can be that I want a good customer service is his need. So, the drivers can be fast response to the inquiry and providing solutions to meet his challenge. Now, how can we make them more measurable? So, these can be understood better. Fast response to inquiry can be better measured if we see the time he takes to reach the customer service officer and then the time that officer takes to resolve his query. And in the same way, this driver that providing solutions to meet his challenge can be better understood if we can see that how many percentage of queries are resolved and the customer satisfaction ratings. In same way, if you can see the voice of businesses, the need is the factor expressed by the shareholder as being important to their perception of efficiency. Now, the driver is an understanding of what he means by efficient, and the CTP statement is a measurable form of the driver. So, let's take an example for this one also. In a voice, if the voice of business, the need was stated, the need which was stated was, I want efficient processing. So, this is the need. So, we can convert it into drivers which can be, I want efficient processing. So, the driver is manageable cost and another one is fast processing. So, now how we can measure this manageable cost? It can be measured if we can see the cost per transaction and the total cost against budget. And in the same way, fast processing can be better measured if we see the processing time plus the cycle time. Has the processing time increased and the cycle time decreased? This means our process is more efficient. So, this is the way how we should convert VOC or VOB into CTQ or CTP respectively. Now, I am going to give you a very easy to understand customer requirement tree example. It is the same that trying to convert VOC into something measurable. This is a very easy to understand example. So, this is an example from a coffee shop. At a coffee shop, a customer was asked how he wants his coffee. He said, I want a good coffee. Now, only he knows what by good quality he actually means. So, now my job is to help the stall owner by translating his statement into something which is more measurable, which can be implemented. So, now what I am going to do is that I know the need of the customer, that is he wants a good coffee. This is something which is very hard to measure. So, what I am going to do is that I am trying to divide it into three drivers, which I believe will help me to reach into something measurable. So, a good coffee should taste good. This is my first driver. Then it should be at a right temperature. Plus, obviously, I need to pay certain cost for it. I can't be paying huge amount for 1 cup of coffee, right? So, now this is something which again is little bit more measurable. Now, how I should reach to a certain statement where I can help the stall owner to provide a good coffee to the customer. So, the taste. Now, coming to taste, I have divided into further, and where taste I should see that the coffee should not be very acidic, it should be rich, it should not be very strong. Then comes the temperature. The temperature should not be less than 60 degrees and should not be more than 80 degrees. It's just an example. And then the cost, it should be between something $5 to $7 per cup, because if it is beyond that, maybe the customer don't want to buy such an expensive coffee. right? So the key points which you should remember are that you should always identify the voice of customer. You should translate this voice of customer to something which is measurable. Now these things are very measurable and they can be implemented by the stall owner. And rank the CTQs, that is critical to quality, into 3 categories. The first category is a dissatisfier. This means it is a must be, that is, if it's not in your product, the customer won't be buying your product. For example, here I just take it as a price. If the stall owner says that the price per cup is $100, so nobody would be interested to buy coffee from him. Same way, nowadays if you take an example of a mobile phone, and if I have to produce a mobile phone, I cannot produce that without a camera. It would be a dissatisfier. Nobody would want a mobile phone without a camera nowadays. And then comes satisfier. This is which more is better, like what you have to offer which your competitor is not offering, or you have to offer something better from your competitor. That is, maybe from this example I can increase the size of the cup, then richer coffee, good presentation. Then the last one is delighter, which means latent needs. This is something which nobody else is offering and you are offering, and this takes your customer by a surprise. Maybe in this case he offers a piece of cake or a cookie with his coffee. This would be a delighter. Any additional feature which is not being expected is a delighter, which you add to your product or service. So now we know that how we should gather VOC and convert it into a CTQ, and these are two very important concepts of define phase. Let's start with measure phase. In this phase, existing system is measured, valid and reliable metrics are established, and the current process is measured for progress towards goal. So the purpose of this step is to objectively establish present or current baseline as the basis for improvement. So I will give you a very simple example so that you can understand the purpose or for what reason the measure phase is used, right? So think this is a process A, and it can be like this company might be producing certain kind of products, or it can be providing services, it can be service based company. So the current output here is this. This is the output, this is the lower spec limit, this is the upper spec limit, and the current output is something like this. This means, as I told you in lecture 1, they are producing lot of goods which are not required by the customer because these are beyond the lower and upper spec limit. These are not required by the customer, these are waste. So this is the current output, but they are not very satisfied with the way this process is, with this output. So what they want to do is they want to implement Six Sigma so that they can just get the output here like this, which is in lower and upper spec limit, no wastage. So if I have to now they have to measure their current process so that they can see what are the loopholes in their current system, so that they can improve on them while implementing Six Sigma. So if I have to measure this process, I just take very simple things which you can understand. For example, I would see what are my current profits. Maybe you can say they are XYZ dollars. Then I would see the number of products I am manufacturing, maybe 500 per month. If I am service based, this means how many customers my company is serving. So this you can say maybe 200 per month. And then the kind of raw materials used, labor used. Then you can also say the cycle time required to manufacture the products, plus other things like electricity which is utilized, water, etc., everything, right? So this is these are the very basic things which we can measure from the process. So now I will see all these and see where I need to make the improvements. So what I want to say is that in simple words, The performance baseline from the measure phase will be used to determine if the objective of the Six Sigma project has been achieved. This means that after Six Sigma implementation, I would again calculate all these things, and if they have improved, that means my profits have improved, the number of products I manufactured have improved, raw material is optimally utilized, there is no wastage, and then the electricity is consumed less and the labor is utilized properly. This means I have successful Six Sigma implementation. I have successfully implemented Six Sigma. So this is done by comparing the final performance matrix with the baseline performance matrix. So if I have to give you an overview of the measure phase, then it would be identify the gap between the current and the required performance. This means that I will carefully analyze my current process, see what are the loopholes, and try to judge what should be the outcome after Six Sigma implementation. Then is data collection. Data is collected to create a process performance capability baseline so that project matrix can be decided and the output, that is Y, can be sought, that what kind of output I want after Six Sigma implementation. Then I should see that measurement system is assessed for accuracy and precision, and establishing high level process flow baseline. Now the question arises, who decides what to measure and how to measure? And this is decided by the team, and team should give enough time in this phase and they should collect proper data, because if data is collected properly and all these things are sought properly, then it will help in a project as a whole. Let's begin with the third phase, which is analyze phase. In this phase, system is analyzed to identify ways to eliminate gap between the current performance and the desired goals. So how this is done? This is done using statistical tools and data analysis. Large number of process inputs X, which can be potential root causes of project problem, are identified using root cause analysis and fishbone diagram, etc. So basically, if, as I told earlier in my previous lectures, that if this is the process and this is the output, so every process has number of factors which are working on it, and in modern processes these number of factors are huge. So for now we can say that maybe A, B, C, D, E, and so on, and these can all be the process inputs, and these result in our output. So when all possible root causes are figured, then what is done is that 3-4 major causes are selected using tools such as multi-voting and consensus tools. Now consensus tools are like 6 thinking hats, etc., and multi-voting is a technique where large number of ideas are prioritized and few are selected which have maximum impact on the output. That is, maybe there are certain factors which have more impact on the output. So data action plan is created and data is collected to establish relative contribution of each root cause to the project matrix. That is, what impact A has on the output or B has on the output. This is analyzed in this phase, and this process is repeated till team reaches a valid root cause to the problem, right? So here it is analyzed that which root cause or which input has the maximum impact on the output and where we need to work on. So in this phase we try to focus on and try to list and prioritize potential causes of the problem, that is where we need to work on, prioritize root causes on which team will work in the next step, that is improve step. So team tries to identify process inputs which have an effect on the Y. This means that which input has maximum impact on the output Y, and basically for this Data is collected in measure phase is understood to understand the magnitude of contribution of each root cause on the process output, and this is done using statistical tools, Pareto charts, line charts, histograms, etc. Data is understood using all this, and finally a detailed process chart should be created to pinpoint where exactly in the process is root causes lie and what is the possible cause of the occurrence, so that that can be fixed in during our Six Sigma implementation. Let's study the fourth phase, which is improve phase. Purpose of this step is to identify, test and implement a solution to the problem, whether in a part or a whole. So in simple words, if I have to tell you that in this step, team tries to find ways to do things better, cheaper and faster. So how to do this? For this, creative solutions are identified to eliminate key root causes so that process problem can be prevented or fixed, right? And the tools which we use in this phase are brainstorming, six thinking hats, random words, etc. and even the complex tools like DOE. If we don't get answers with these basic tools, then we have to go for the complex tools like DOE, which is design of experiment and this is done by research and development people. This is a complex tool and we will discuss about it later. Then in nutshell, what is the purpose of this phase? It is team should come up with innovative solutions, that is whatever solutions we get from these techniques like brainstorming, six thinking hats, etc. And we should first focus on simplest or easiest solutions. Solutions should be checked using Pdca cycle. Now you all know what is a Pdca cycle, and based on the results which we get from the Pdca cycle, avoidable risks should be anticipated. And then detailed implementation plan should be created and improvement plan should be deployed. So this is all what we have to do in this phase. Now let's take on these two techniques, brainstorming and six thinking hats, in a little detail so that you know what are these. Let's understand what is brainstorming. Brainstorming is a relaxed, informal approach to problem solving with lateral thinking. This technique was developed by Alex Osborne, who was a marketing executive, and he first published this in his book Applied Imagination in the year 1953. Now let's come to lateral thinking. Lateral thinking was a term which was coined by Edward de Bono, which means a creative problem solving approach using reasoning which is not immediately obvious and it does not follow traditional logical step-by-step approach towards problem solving. Brainstorming helps people think out of the box. This means they can come with creative solutions to the problem which can be later crafted into very good ideas. Now what is brainstorming and why we need to do brainstorming? Because conventional group solving cannot be successful because of unhelpful group behavior, and it has been seen that structural analytical process to problem solving can lead to limited and unimaginative ideas, whereas in brainstorming team works in an open and free environment, it encourages everyone to participate because criticism is avoided and you are not supposed to be judgmental when you are brainstorming, right? So it brings forth diverse experience of the team which leads to better solutions and better team involvement. How? Because once team knows that their solutions will be accepted to the solving the problem, so they are more committed towards its success, and better team bonding as they solve problems in positive and rewarding environments since there is no criticism and judgments. right? But during brainstorming, you should be careful that its approach should always be open-minded and you don't have to be judgmental. Otherwise, quality of ideas will go down and creativity will suffer, right? So brainstorming is of two types, individual brainstorming and group brainstorming. So individual brainstorming, as you know, when one individual brainstorms, that's individual brainstorming. It has been seen that sometimes we get better ideas in individual brainstorming than in group brainstorming. Why? Because sometimes we have very good ideas but we hesitate to bring forth in presence of other people. Maybe we think that other people will be judgmental about our ideas. We have sometimes a very creative idea but we are not able to tell it in front of other people. So here this is the positive of individual brainstorming, so that you can come up with very creative and innovative ideas. But the negative part is that you may have a very good idea but you lack experience to work on it or to develop into a full-fledged solution. So here you do not have the experience of the team. During individual brainstorming, it works best when you have to solve simple problems, focus on broad issues, and you have to create a list of ideas. But you should always remember that during individual brainstorming, you should try to focus on the problem in hand and you should try to avoid distractions. Plus, you can use mind maps to develop ideas for the individual brainstorming sessions. Let's take on group brainstorming. The advantages of group brainstorming over individual brainstorming are that you can use creativity and experience of all team members so that you can come up with good ideas. For example, if one person or one group member is stuck with his idea, another one can take it from there and build it further. So ideas can be developed in greater depth. Plus, you have member buy-ins. By this, what I mean is that when the team knows that the solution which was offered by them has been accepted, then they stick to it and see that it is successfully implemented. But during group discussion, always avoid criticism, because otherwise the whole purpose of creative thinking will suffer. And you should try to make the team from different departments. This would enrich your discussion and you will get better solutions. Let's try to understand how to brainstorm effectively. So this can be done, or it should be done, in three parts. Whether we are individually brainstorming or we are in a group brainstorming sessions, we should do it in three parts. The first part is create a roadmap. So here what you have to do is that look at your goal. Always ask yourself, what do you want to achieve? Because once you know what you want to achieve, you will have a solid starting point. This will give you a good start, and then you have to figure out the ways to reach your goal. Then try to understand the requirements. That is, think if you are brainstorming or you have to come up with a product or service for someone like a boss or client, try to think what they require or what they want from you. Then try to understand your limitations and what kind of product it should be. If you are developing a product, you should always know about your limitations and you should know what are you expected to develop. For this, what you can do is that you can break down the requirements, and this will give you a better understanding of the problem, and you will have a good framework, and this will give you a good framework to start. So you should think about that whether you have to work in a budget, that is certain kind of budget is allotted to you within which you have to work. Then any raw materials which you have or which you have to use to make the product. And finally, if there is any time limit, that is you have to meet deadline and you have to make that product or you have to do that in a certain deadline. Then after doing this, you should list all your assumptions. That is, for example, you have a business or you have to develop a new product, try to assume what your customer wants from you. And then you should think of similar products which are already there in the market, so that you can come up with better quality and additional features. and this will offer, and so you can offer better quality to your customers. Then evaluate your resources. This means what kind of tools you have which you can utilize, or the raw materials which you can utilize. Then in part 2 of brainstorming, do some research. Here, take help of the available resources, literature or the similar products, and then keep a journal. It's very important. Whether you are brainstorming individually or in a group brainstorming session, you should always keep a journal of all the ideas. When you are doing brainstorming individually, you should always keep a notebook and a pen with you, because sometimes ideas come when you're doing some other work, but they disperse off because if you don't write them down. And same way, if you're in a group brainstorming session, always assign a duty to a member who should write down all the ideas, whatever are discussed in any of the group brainstorming sessions. So all the ideas should be written down. Now let's come to part 3, which is the various techniques of brainstorming. There are various brainstorming techniques. Today I am going to discuss popular few. The first one which I would like to take is mind maps. This is a very popular brainstorming technique. So what is done here is that one major idea is written on the board, and then all the details we have regarding it is also written. Then we try to develop this idea by connecting all the information we have. The second technique which I am going to discuss is creating idea categories. This is also a very interesting technique. Here we try to divide ideas into 3 categories, that is simple ideas, tough ideas and crazy ideas. So what is done is that we try to get at least 5 ideas for each category, and during this process it has been seen that we come up with really good ideas which can be crafted into good solutions. In all the brainstorming sessions, always remember that you should ask as many questions as you can ask, because this will help you to understand the process better. Plus, you can use the idea generator tools, and these are easily available nowadays online. Then the third technique which I would like to take is step ladder technique. This technique is really helpful in getting the ideas from the silent members. So it is done in 5 steps. In the first step, the problem is presented to all the members of the group. They are given enough time to think about the solutions and come with some really good ideas. Then in step 2, a core team of 2 members is formed who discuss the ideas. And then in step 3, the third member is introduced to this core group. He first has to give his ideas to those 2 members. Then those 2 members share their ideas with this third member. Then in step 4, the step 3 is repeated again. That is, the 4th member is added to this core group who has to present his ideas to the team. And then finally in step 5, all the members sit together and discuss their ideas and come to the final decisions. Then there is another technique which is called brainwriting. This technique is also very effective to get feedback from all the members, since they have to write down the ideas, so all the members give the equal input, because sometimes it has been seen that in general brainstorming sessions, few members hesitate to give their ideas due to maybe fear of criticism or something. So in this technique, brainwriting, every member gives his ideas. And then the 4th one or the 5th one is Crawford slip writing method. This is same as brainwriting. It was developed by Dr. C.C. Crawford. Here all the members have to write down their ideas on the slips, and then comes starbursting. This is a kind of a question asking technique. For example, if in a group discussion session, one member says that he has an idea how to develop a new product, or he has an idea to develop a new product, all the members will shoot their questions at him. For example, they would ask what would be the durability of the product, what would be the market response, what kind of raw materials would be used, so on and so forth. Basically, it's a question asking technique. Let's discuss another brainstorming technique which is known as Charit Procedure. Using this technique, you can brainstorm in really large groups. In traditional brainstorming, you cannot involve more than 10 to 12 members, but here you can brainstorm in large groups. So what is done is, here small groups are organized and each of which brainstorms. So this way everyone gets chance to propose their ideas. Now this word charit, it's a French word which means wagon, and this technique was copied, or you can say came from the 18th century architecture students who used to cart their designs from one place to another to get them approved. In same way, here ideas are transferred from one group to another where they are prioritized and polished or built further on. So the benefits of this technique are effective use of time. Since many groups are discussing different issues at same time, so the time can be used effectively. Then improved minds from the stakeholders who have an opportunity to contribute their ideas on each issue. Then comes encouraging high quality options, because popular ideas are polished with each round of discussion, and elimination of stalled discussions, because when new people are involved in the group, then they can build on those ideas further. Now let's take another technique, which is role storming. Have you ever heard of role reversal? It is something same. It's a simple brainstorming technique where group members take other people's identities, and this reduces inhibition when people share ideas and helps people come up with ideas that may not be otherwise considered. So how we have to work with this technique? So first, brainstorm obvious ideas. This helps in generating good ideas and highlights obvious ideas, plus helps in exploring new ideas and new boundaries. Then identify the role. This means you should take the role of each member should take another person's role, and he should get in the character. So to get in the character, he should ask himself few questions. That is, how this person sees the world, what is this person's attitude, how would he solve his problem, and what are his strengths and weaknesses. You should always try to understand the persona of the character you are playing. You should deeply go into his persona. Only then you can generate or come up with some really good ideas. You should always brainstorm in character. That means you should always try to think according to the person whose role you are playing. Then make sure that each person speaks up, and you should repeat this process. This means once you can play one character, and if you think that you need to play other people's role, then you should do that. So while brainstorming, always take care or always follow certain rules. These are: encourage question asking. Never stop questions, because once you ask questions, you get more ideas. Encourage wild ideas. Then one idea at a time should be considered. Be visual. Try to build on other people's ideas. And the golden rules are: do not criticize and don't be judgmental. Let's discuss another important decision making technique known as 6 thinking hats. This was developed by Edward de Bono. It's a very important and powerful decision making technique and is used to look into decisions from number of important perspectives, and this will help you get a rounded view of the situation. So using this technique, a problem can be solved using all approaches and thinking styles. And so what you will decide will be the mix of ambition, skill in execution, public sensitivity, creativity, and good contingency planning. So this kind of thinking can be used both individually and in group. So when used in group, it helps in preventing confrontations which usually occur when people of different thinking styles come together. So now let's discuss which are the different thinking hats. The first one is white hat. When you wear white hat, your thinking would be to focus on data and information you have. You look for gaps in your information, then either you try to fill those gaps or you try to take account of them. You analyze past trends and extrapolate from historical data. This means you try to gain knowledge or try to take reference from the past trends. Then comes red hat thinking. This is a kind of thinking where you look at a problem using intuition, gut reaction or emotionally. You try to think how other people will react emotionally and try to understand their response. Then comes black hat thinking. Here you look at all the bad points of your decision consciously and defensively. Then you try to find out why your plans may not work, and you will highlight the weak points of your plan so that you can either eliminate them or develop contingency plans in case they fail. In this way, you can make your plans tougher and more resilient and help spot fatal flaws and mistakes in your plans. This kind of thinking is very important for successful people who over time tend to be very positive, so they fail to see the risks in advance. So using this kind of thinking, they can see the fatal flaws in their plans. Yellow hat is a forward thinking hat. Here you think positively. This is complete opposite of the black thinking hat. So you see, here you try to see all the benefits of your decision, all the value which lies in your decision, and this kind of thinking is very helpful when the things are seeming very difficult and the situation is gloomy. Then comes our fifth thinking hat, that is the green hat. The green hat stands for creativity. It is a kind of freewheeling way of thinking. So when the team is short of new ideas, they wear this thinking hat where they try to develop new and creative ideas. Then comes blue hat. Finally, this is our sixth hat. It stands for process control and is used by people chairing the meetings when running into difficulties. For example, if the team is running dry of new ideas, they will ask members to wear green thinking hat and come up with new ideas. And in case they want to know what kind of fatal flaws are in their plans, they will ask the members to wear black thinking hat. And in same way, if they think that the situation is becoming very gloomy, then what they will do is they will ask the members to wear yellow thinking hat so that they can see the positive side of the decision. Let's start with the last phase, that is the control phase. The purpose of this step is to control the new system, and this is done by institutionalizing the improved system. The basic purpose is to sustain gains and monitor improvements to ensure continued and sustainable success. So basically what is done, where we have seen that we have implemented our plans, now we have to put controls in place so that our system does not fall back to previous style of working. For this, control plan is created, documented and updated, and control charts are developed to assess stability in improvements, to guide continued monitoring of process, and response plan is developed. So finally the team implements the solution and transfers ownership of this new process to the responsible owner. So what we see here is that Six Sigma culture drives profitability. How? This is done by implementing ongoing measures and actions to sustain improvement. This is done by defining responsibility for process ownership and management, and finally execute closed loop management and drive towards Six Sigma. Now I am going to give you a brief summary of the Dmacc process improvement methodology. So if I would like to, here I would also like to tell you that Dmacc is a kind of a gated process for the projects. it works this way. So if we just see at the first phase, that's the define phase. So if I have to give you a brief summary of the define phase, then what is it? Here we define the project scope, objectives and the schedule. We define the process and the stakeholders. We select team members and obtain authorization from sponsors, assemble and train our team. Once we just meet all this, we close this gate and move to our second phase, which is measure phase. Here the process is defined, matrix is defined, process baseline is established, measurement system is evaluated, and after all this is achieved, this gate is also closed. Then we move to our third phase, which is analyze phase. Here we benchmark against best in class. That is, what should be the best product, what we should be developing. Determine process drivers, analyze sources of variation, and value system is also analyzed. Then we move to the fourth phase, which is improve phase. Here we evaluate the risks and failure mode, optimizing process and product settings, defining new processes, products and product designs, and prioritizing improvements in the organization. And then finally we move to our fifth phase, which is control. Here we approve deliverables, document reports and lessons learned, develop and implement control plans, and validate the new process or the product. Here I would also like to introduce you to a new and a very brief concept known as quick wins. Now, what are the quick wins? Sometimes the team does not have to go through all the 5 phases because they find out the very prominent reasons of errors and where they are, so they quickly fix them. And once this is done, the process reaches its optimum levels of functioning, so they don't need to go through all the 5 phases. So the management reassigns the team to more pressing business opportunities. Here I am going to end my lecture 4.